Proverbs chapter 1, verses 20 to 33. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowds along the main street, to those gathered in front of the city gate. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long will you mockers relish your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. I call you so often, but you wouldn't come. I reached out to you, but you paid no attention. You ignored my advice and rejected the correction I offered. So I will laugh when you are in trouble. I will mock you when disaster overtakes you, when calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster engulfs you like a cyclone, and anguish and distress overwhelm you. When they cry for help, I will not answer. Though they anxiously search for me, they will not find me, for they hated knowledge and chose not to fear the Lord. They rejected my advice and paid no attention when I corrected them. Therefore, they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. For simpletons turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency. But all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by fear of harm. Wisdom literature is understood as writing which provides moral instruction. The wisdom of God here is portrayed as a woman, a flesh and blood woman who arrives on the scene to enter into human affairs in order to deliver God's message firsthand. She challenges us to come out of ignorance. You know, sometimes the Bible is pretty hard to take. We all like to think that we are pretty smart and have it all together. But here, wisdom says, simpletons, how long will you wallow in ignorance? Wisdom has called, but people have turned a deaf ear. They have hated knowledge, have refused to take God's advice, and haven't allowed God to train them. The problem is not that wisdom hasn't been available. Wisdom, after all, goes out into the middle of the street and shouts loud enough for everyone to hear. The problem is that the people have been unwilling to learn. It's funny, isn't it? Our churches are full of people with specialized knowledge. In the churches, we find skilled craftsmen. We find people with advanced degrees. We have people who teach for a living. We do everything we can to encourage our children to get a good education. We as a culture are so smart in our Monday through Friday occupations, but we are often content to graduate from Sunday school as a child and be content for the rest of our lives with an elementary understanding of our faith. God's wisdom is ready to teach us. Proverbs 1 and 23 says, "Look, I'm ready to tell you all I know." Our job is to take God up on the offer, to be willing learners, to be eager learners, to be enthusiastic learners. But we forget that the wisdom of God must be interpreted and applied. Lady Wisdom says, "Since you laugh at my counsel and make a joke of my advice, I'll turn the tables and joke about your troubles. If we refuse to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves, we will never be able to find joy and salvation. Listening to wisdom is a smart thing to do. Let's remember what sort of world we live in. Every single day, we are faced with incredibly complex issues: terrorism, the protection of the environment, immigration reform, rising costs of health care, energy dependence and independence, the clash of world religions, and others. Only by listening to God's wisdom, interpreting that wisdom, and then applying it to issues of the day will we ever be able to make sense of them. Only by listening to God's wisdom will we be able to faithfully interpret the biblical writings. Only by listening to God's wisdom will we be able to hear the movement of the Holy Spirit, which guides, corrects, and strengthens us. Only by listening to God's wisdom will we understand that Christ is the answer to all that ails us, and that salvation is to be found only in Him. God bless.